I stared at my phone, watching the screen fade to black before lighting up again with another incoming call from my mother. 3 calls in 5 minutes, a new record, even for her. The diamond on my engagement ring caught the afternoon light as I gripped the phone tighter, knowing exactly why she was calling. "Katie, darling, wonderful news." Her voice burst through the speaker before I could even say hello. "Lauren just made senior account manager at her firm. We simply must celebrate this weekend." My stomach dropped. "Mum, this weekend is my engagement party. We've been planning it for months." "Oh, that." The dismissal in her tone made my jaw clench. "Well, surely we can reschedule. This is such an important milestone for your sister. The managing partner specifically requested her promotion be announced at a formal gathering." I pressed my fingertips against my temple, counting backward from 10 like Marcus taught me. The invitations went out weeks ago. People have made travel arrangements. I've already started calling guests to inform them of the change. Most have been very understanding. The room tilted sideways. "You what?" "Katie, don't be difficult. Your sister has worked incredibly hard for this opportunity. The least you could do is show some support. The engagement party can wait. It's not as if Marcus is going anywhere." My free hand curled into a fist, nails digging into my palm. Did Lauren know about this when she called last week to confirm she'd be at my party? The slight pause told me everything. "That's hardly relevant now, dear. Actually, it's extremely relevant." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "You and Lauren planned this, didn't you? Just like the time my college graduation dinner suddenly became her scholarship celebration. Or when my 30th birthday party transformed into her housewarming. Now you're being paranoid. This is exactly why we worry about you, always turning everything into a competition with your sister." I caught my reflection in the window. Cheeks flushed, eyes bright with unshed tears. But something else was there too. Something I hadn't seen in my own face before. Determination, maybe. Or rage. "The party is happening as planned," I said. "If you and Lauren choose not to attend, that's your decision. Katie Elizabeth Morrison, you will not embarrass this family by—" "I have to go, Mum. I'm meeting Marcus for dinner." I ended the call and immediately switched off my phone, knowing the barrage of texts and calls would start within seconds. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys and purse. I needed to see Marcus, needed his steady presence to keep me from doing something rash. But with each step toward my car, a new memory surfaced, Lauren announcing her engagement at my law school graduation party. Mom scheduling Lauren's wedding shower the same weekend as my first major trial. Knowing I couldn't attend both. Dad always taking their side, his silence as crushing as their actions. 20 years of being pushed aside, minimized, made to feel less than. 20 years of swallowing my anger, of being the bigger person, of understanding and forgiving and trying to keep the peace. My phone stayed off as I drove to Marcus's office, but I could imagine the family group chat exploding. Aunt Clara would be the voice of reason, trying to mediate. Olivia would be firmly in my corner, probably unleashing the sharp tongue she'd inherited from Clara. Dad would say nothing, as usual. But for the first time, I didn't care about any of it. Something had snapped inside me, something that had been bending and stretching for far too long. As I pulled into the parking lot, I realized I was smiling. Not the practiced, peaceful smile I usually wore at family gatherings, but something darker, something that felt dangerously close to satisfaction. They wanted a competition. Fine. But this time, I wasn't playing by their rules. Marcus's office was empty when I arrived, but I found him in the building's courtyard, pacing with his phone pressed to his ear. His tie hung loose around his neck, and his usually neat hair was mussed from running his fingers through it. Telltale signs he'd been dealing with my family. "Helen, with all due respect—" He stopped when he saw me, relief washing over his face. "Katie's here now. We'll discuss this later." He ended the call and pulled me into a tight embrace. "Your mother has called me 6 times in the last hour. She's trying to cancel our engagement party for Lauren's work thing." The words came out muffled against his chest. "I know. She informed me it was my duty as a future son-in-law to convince you to be reasonable. His attempt at mimicking my mother's voice made me laugh despite everything. I told her the only duty I have is to support my fiancé. A text notification buzzed, then another, and another. Lauren's joined the campaign, I said, pulling away to check my phone. The messages rolled in like artillery fire. Lauren, you're being ridiculous. This promotion is huge for me. Lauren, Mum's right, you can reschedule. It's just a party. Lauren, why do you always have to make everything so difficult? Look at this. I showed Marcus the screen. She knew about this last week when she RSVP'd. She looked me in the eye at Sunday dinner and said she couldn't wait for the party. Marcus's jaw tightened. What do you want to do? My voice cracked. I cleared my throat and tried again. I want them to feel what it's like, just once, to have something important to them completely dismissed. He studied my face carefully. Katie, whatever you decide, I'm with you. But make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. The right reasons? I laughed, but it came out harsh. Like the reasons they had for turning my law school graduation party into Lauren's engagement announcement, or when Mum scheduled Lauren's wedding shower the same weekend as my first major trial. I remember. His voice was gentle. I also remember you telling me you never wanted to be like them. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Aunt Clara's name flashed on the screen. Katie, honey. Her warm voice was like a balm. I just got off the phone with your mother. Are you okay? I'm fine. The lie came automatically. Just tired of it all. I bet you are, she paused. You know, your mother pulled something similar when I got engaged. Suddenly announced she was pregnant with you at my engagement dinner. Stole the spotlight completely. I straightened. She what? Oh, yes. It was her way of making sure all eyes were on her, just like she's doing now with Lauren. Clara's tone sharpened. History repeats itself when we let it, sweetheart. The pieces clicked into place. Every ruined celebration, every stolen moment. It wasn't just about Lauren, it was about control. What did you do? I asked. I went ahead with my plans. Had a beautiful engagement party with people who actually cared about celebrating my happiness. She chuckled. Your mother didn't speak to me for months. Best months of my life, actually. Marcus watched me as I processed this. He could probably see the wheels turning in my head. Thanks, Aunt Clara. I ended the call and turned to Marcus. I need your help with something. Name it. We're going to have our party. But first, I need to make some calls. I pulled up my contact list. Starting with Lauren's boss. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Her boss? Remember Jack from law school? He's a partner at Lauren's firm now. We had drinks last month and he mentioned some concerns about her taking credit for other people's work. A smile spread across my face. I think it's time for a long overdue catch-up. Katie, Marcus's tone held a warning. I'm not doing anything wrong. Just sharing some relevant information with interested parties. I met his gaze steadily. They wanted to make this about Lauren's career. Fine, let's talk about Lauren's career. He was quiet for a long moment before nodding slowly. Okay, but we do this smart. No direct attacks. Of course not. I leaned up and kissed him. We'll just let karma do its job, with a little help from the truth. As we walked to his car, my phone buzzed with another message from Lauren. I deleted it without reading it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't interested in playing defense anymore. It was time to change the game entirely. The coffee shop near Lauren's office wasn't my usual scene, but it offered the perfect vantage point. I stirred my untouched latte, watching the entrance while pretending to work on my laptop. Marcus thought I was at the office. Some lies I'd learned were necessary acts of self-preservation. Right on schedule, Lauren burst through the door, my mother close behind. They grabbed their drinks and settled at a corner table, heads bent together like conspirators, which of course they were. I slipped my earbuds in, opened my phone's recording app, and moved to the table behind them, angling my laptop screen as a shield. Katie's being completely unreasonable, Lauren was saying. I had this promotion planned for months. The timing just worked out perfectly. My mother's laugh was familiar, that soft, satisfied sound that always preceded her worst manipulations. Darling, you don't need to explain. We've always understood each other, haven't we? Just like with your engagement announcement at her graduation party. That was brilliant, wasn't it? The way you suggested I wait until then, when everyone important would be there. My hands started shaking. I pressed them flat against the table. Of course. Why waste money on two separate events? And it worked out beautifully. Your father's colleagues were all there, which helped Charles get that partnership interview. Mum's voice dropped lower. Though I still think you could have done better than Charles. Mother, Lauren's tone sharpened. We're not discussing my divorce right now. Focus on the current problem. Katie's actually fighting back this time. She called Jack yesterday. Your boss? What could she possibly... She knows, Mom. About the Anderson account. About how I took credit for Sarah's work. The silence that followed felt like a living thing. Well, Mom finally said, that's easily handled. You simply need to... No. Lauren's voice cracked. You don't understand. Katie has proof, emails, documentation. She's not just making noise this time. I reached for my phone, ready to send the recording to Jack, when a shadow fell across my table. I looked up to find my father standing there, his face ashen. Katie. His voice was barely a whisper. Mom and Lauren's heads whipped around. The look of horror on Lauren's face would have been satisfying if I wasn't so focused on maintaining my composure. Hello, everyone. I stood slowly, removing my earbuds. Fascinating conversation, really illuminating. You were spying on us. Lauren's outrage would have been more convincing if her voice wasn't trembling. Spying implies secrecy. I'm sitting in a public place having coffee. I smiled, channeling Mum's own weapon of choice. But you'd know all about secrets, wouldn't you, Lauren? Like the real reason the Anderson account exceeded projections. Katie. Dad stepped forward, reaching for my arm. Please, let's not... I jerked away from him. Don't. You don't get to play peacemaker now. Where were you all those times they sabotaged my achievements? All those times they turned my moments into Lauren's spotlight? I was protecting you, he said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow. Protecting me? From what? Success? Happiness? From your mother's disappointment. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something there I'd never noticed before. Guilt. From becoming her next target. Mum stood so quickly her chair toppled backward. Frank, that's enough. No, Helen, it's not. His voice strengthened. I watched you do to Katie what your mother did to you. I told myself it was better to let you focus on Lauren, that at least Katie would be spared the worst of it. I was wrong. The coffee shop had gone silent, other patrons pretending not to watch the drama unfolding. I have proof of everything, I said, looking directly at Lauren. Every manipulated situation, every stolen credit, every lie. I was going to send it all to Jack today. I paused, letting the threat sink in. But maybe we can make a deal instead. What kind of deal? Lauren's voice was small. I pulled out my phone, held it up so they could see the recording app running. You're going to tell Mom exactly why you're getting divorced. The real reason. And Mom... I turned to her, feeling a cold satisfaction at her pale face. You're going to sit there and listen. For once in your life, you're going to hear the truth about your perfect daughter. Lauren's sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit my mark. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about forcing people to face their own reflections. And if we refuse... Mum's voice was ice. I smiled, thinking of Jack's business card in my wallet. Then I start making calls. The truth about Lauren's divorce spread through our family like wildfire. I hadn't expected her to actually confess, but there she sat in that coffee shop, tears streaming down her face as she told Mom about Charles's gambling addiction and how she'd stolen from her own company to cover his debts. Now, 3 days later, I stood in Aunt Clara's kitchen, watching her hands shake as she poured tea. Your mother's not answering my calls, Clara said, sliding a cup toward me. Frank says she hasn't left their bedroom since Lauren's confession. And Lauren, Called in sick to work. Again. Clara's mouth tightened. Though, after what you discovered about the Anderson account, she might not have a job to go back to. The victory felt hollow. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, remembering Lauren's face when she finally broke down. I wanted them to hurt like I hurt, but this— Be careful what you wish for, Clara murmured, just as the doorbell rang. We both froze at the sound of Olivia's voice in the hallway, and Helen's answering tone. They're in the kitchen, Olivia called out, appearing in the doorway with my mother right behind her. Helen looked smaller somehow, her designer outfit wrinkled, her makeup slightly smeared. Katie. Her voice cracked on my name. We need to talk. Clara stood. I'll give you some privacy. No. Helen's hand shot out, grabbing Clara's arm. You should hear this too. You were right, all those years ago. Olivia slipped into the seat beside me as Helen sank into a chair, her perfectly manicured hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. I received a call from Lauren's firm this morning, she said. They're conducting a full audit. They found irregularities, going back years. The tea turned bitter in my mouth. How much? Nearly $500,000. Helen's laugh was brittle. My perfect daughter, embezzling to cover her husband's gambling debts, and now— She looked directly at me for the first time. Now she's trying to blame it all on Sarah, the colleague whose work she stole. My stomach dropped. What? She told the board you fabricated evidence against her out of jealousy. That you and Sarah conspired to frame her. Helen's hands trembled as she reached for her purse, withdrawing a folded paper. She had this delivered to every board member this morning. I scanned the document, my vision blurring at the sight of my old law firm letterhead. The letter detailed a history of my supposed mental instability, my pathological jealousy of Lauren, complete with fabricated incidents and witness statements. It has your signature, Helen said quietly. A very good forgery. The room tilted. Olivia grabbed my arm, steadying me. I didn't. I swallowed hard. You know I didn't. I know. Helen's voice broke. I know because I taught her how to forge signatures, just like my mother taught me. Clara inhaled sharply. Helen? It was how I survived in my family, Helen continued as if she hadn't heard. Always having something to hold over others. Always being one step ahead. She looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. I taught Lauren too well, and now she's going to destroy you to save herself. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Call me immediately. Jack from Lauren's firm just reached out. It's bad. What are you going to do? Olivia asked softly. I stared at the forged letter, at my sister's desperate attempt to destroy me. The old Katie would have backed down, would have found a way to protect Lauren even now. But I wasn't that person anymore. I'm going to call Jack, I said, standing, and then I'm calling the police. Katie, please. Helen reached for my hand. She's your sister. I pulled away, feeling something final snap inside me. No, she's your creation, and now you both get to live with the consequences. As I walked out of Clara's kitchen, my phone already pressed to my ear, I heard my mother begin to sob. Part of me wanted to turn back, to comfort her, to find some way to fix this mess. But Lauren had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. Jack, I said as the call connected. I have something you need to see, about Lauren, about everything. Sometimes protection means letting people face the consequences of their own actions, even if those people are family, especially if they're family. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Lauren's face as they led her away in handcuffs. She didn't look at me, but her words hung in the air. I hope you're happy now, sister. I wasn't, not even close. Marcus found me in the parking lot an hour later, staring at my reflection in his car window. Your mother's been calling non-stop, he said, touching my shoulder. She wants to know if you're pressing charges. Lauren committed fraud, Marcus. She tried to frame me for it. My voice sounded distant, even to myself. The decision isn't mine anymore. His phone buzzed, another message, then mine, then both again. "They're all gathering at your parents' house," he said quietly. "Your father thinks we can still fix this as a family." I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make Marcus flinch. "Fix this? Lauren stole $500,000, forged documents in my name, and tried to destroy my career. What exactly does he think we can fix?" "Katie, no." I pulled away from his touch. "I'm done fixing things. I'm done being the reasonable one, the understanding one, the one who sacrifices everything to keep the peace." My phone lit up again. Aunt Clara this time. I answered without thinking. "They're saying you set her up," Clara said without preamble. "Helen is telling everyone you orchestrated this whole thing as revenge for the engagement party." Something snapped inside me. Of course she is. "There's more." Clara's voice dropped. "Lauren's lawyer is building a case around your supposed vendetta against her. They're going to claim you planted evidence, manipulated documents. Using the forged letter about my mental health as groundwork," I finished. "Perfect. Just perfect." Marcus was watching me carefully. "What do you want to do?" What did I want? I wanted my sister to not be a criminal. I wanted my mother to love me as much as she loved Lauren. I wanted my father to stand up for me just once. I wanted my family to be different people entirely. "The engagement party," I said suddenly. "It's tomorrow night. We can postpone." "No." I turned to face him fully. "We're having it. Every last detail exactly as planned. And we're inviting everyone." "Everyone?" His eyebrows rose. "Including my entire family, Lauren's colleagues, the board members she tried to deceive. Everyone." I pulled out my phone and started typing. "Let them all come see the truth for themselves. Katie, think about this. I have thought about it. For 30 years, I've thought about it." My fingers flew across the screen. "They want to paint me as the unstable one. Fine. Let's give them front row seats to what really happens when I stop playing by their rules." Clara's voice crackled through the speaker. "What are you planning?" "A celebration," I said, hitting send on the mass text. "Isn't that what they always wanted? Another chance to make everything about Lauren?" Marcus grabbed my phone gently. "This isn't you." "Maybe it is now." I met his gaze steadily. "Maybe this is who I become when I stop letting them write my story." My phone chimed with responses. Shocked replies, confused questions, a single "how dare you" from my mother. I ignored them all. "If you do this," Marcus said carefully, "there's no going back. Your family—" "My family?" I gestured at the police station behind us. "My sister is in custody for fraud. My mother is already spinning lies to protect her. My father is probably writing checks to lawyers right now." I took my phone back from Marcus. They stopped being my family the moment they decided I was expendable. Another message popped up, from Sarah, Lauren's colleague whom she'd tried to frame. "Count me in. I'll bring the evidence files." Then Olivia. "About damn time. I'll handle the guest list." And finally, Aunt Clara. "Your mother won't survive this." I typed back 3 words. "Neither will I." Because that was the truth, wasn't it? The old Katie, the peacekeeper, the pushover, the eternal second best. She couldn't survive this. Maybe she shouldn't. "Tomorrow night," I said to Marcus, "everything changes. Are you with me?" He studied my face for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Always. But Katie, make sure this is about justice, not just revenge. Don't let them turn you into something you're not." I looked back at the police station one last time. Maybe I'm finally becoming who I should have been all along. The engagement party venue glittered with fairy lights and champagne glasses, a perfect facade for the bomb I was about to detonate. I stood at the entrance, greeting guests with practiced smiles, while Marcus squeezed my hand in silent support. Sarah arrived first, clutching a leather portfolio. "Everything's here, the forged documents, the transfer records, even Lauren's emails about framing me." Then Jack from the firm, his face grim. "The board wants to handle this quietly. They're offering a deal." "Too late," I said, watching my mother's Mercedes pull into the parking lot. "Some things shouldn't stay quiet." Helen swept in wearing black, like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. Dad trailed behind her, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Katie," Mom's voice carried across the room. "We need to talk, now." I gestured to the small office off the main hall. As we stepped inside, I caught Olivia positioning herself near the door, my back up, ready to intervene. "Lauren made bail an hour ago," Mom said without preamble. "She's on her way here." My carefully constructed plans wavered. "She wouldn't dare. You underestimate what people will do when they're desperate." She pulled out an envelope. "These are from your teenage years, your therapy sessions, your medication history." The room tilted. "Those records were sealed." "Nothing stays sealed when you know the right people." Her hands trembled slightly. "Stop this now, Katie, or everyone at this party will learn about your breakdown at 16. About the pills, about everything." "You'd do that? Use my worst moments against me?" "To protect my daughter?" "Yes." "I'm your daughter too." She flinched, but her voice stayed steady. "Lauren needs me more." The door opened. Dad stepped in, followed by Marcus. "Helen, that's enough." "Frank, stay out of this." "No." His voice cracked like a whip. "I stayed out of it when you pushed Katie aside for Lauren. I stayed out of it when you turned every milestone in her life into Lauren's spotlight. I won't stay out of it anymore." Mom's face hardened. "You don't understand." "I understand that our daughter committed fraud," he said. "I understand that instead of holding her accountable, you're trying to destroy our other daughter to protect her." "It's not that simple." The door burst open again. Lauren stood there, mascara streaked down her face, still wearing the clothes she'd been arrested in. "Actually, it is that simple." Lauren's laugh was hollow. "I did it, all of it. And you know what, Katie? I'd do it again, because Mom's right. I need her more. I deserve more." The room fell silent. In that moment, I saw us clearly, all of us trapped in roles we'd been playing our whole lives. The golden child, the scapegoat, the enabler, the victim. "You're wrong," I said quietly. "You don't deserve more. You just took more. And I let you, because that's what good sisters do, right? What good daughters do." I reached for the portfolio Sarah had brought, but my hands were shaking too badly. Marcus picked it up instead. "Katie," Mum warned, "if you do this..." "You'll what? Reveal my mental health history? Go ahead." I met her eyes steadily. "I'm not ashamed of surviving what this family did to me." Lauren lunged for the portfolio, but Marcus stepped back smoothly. She stumbled, catching herself on the desk. "It's over, Lauren," I said. "The truth is going to come out, all of it." "You'll destroy this family," Mum whispered. "No." I moved toward the door. "You did that years ago. I'm just finally stopping the cover-up." As I reached for the handle, Lauren's voice stopped me. "I'll tell them you helped me, that you knew about the fraud all along. It'll be your word against mine, and we both know who Mum will support." I turned back one last time, seeing them clearly. My mother's desperate need for control, Lauren's entitled rage, my father's too late attempts at protection. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them whatever you want. I'm done playing by your rules." I stepped out into the party, where dozens of faces turned toward me expectantly. My hands were steady now as I picked up a champagne glass. "Thank you all for coming," I heard myself say. "I have a story to tell you." Behind me, I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath, Lauren's muffled sob, my father's heavy sigh. But for the first time in my life, their reactions didn't matter. The truth was finally going to have its moment in the spotlight. The silence after I finished speaking felt like a physical weight. Champagne glasses froze halfway to lips. Conversations died mid-sentence, and dozens of eyes fixed on the evidence projected on the venue's wall. Lauren's fraud laid bare in emails, bank statements, and forged documents. Lauren surged forward, her voice shrill. "This is all lies. She's trying to destroy me because she's jealous. She's always been jealous." "The numbers don't lie, Lauren," Jack said quietly. "Neither do your emails to Sarah discussing how to frame her for your theft." Mom stepped between Lauren and the screen. "This is a private family matter. I must ask everyone to... Private? Sarah's laugh cut through the room. Like how Lauren privately stole my work, or how she privately tried to destroy my career. I did it for you. Lauren whirled on Mom. Everything I did was to make you proud, to be perfect, to be what you wanted. The room collectively inhaled. Mum's face went white. Lauren, Dad warned, but she was beyond stopping. Katie was weak. You said so yourself. She needed therapy, needed pills, needed help. But I was strong. I did whatever it took. I became exactly what you wanted. I never wanted this, Mum whispered. Liar. Lauren grabbed a champagne glass, hurled it against the wall. You taught me how to forge signatures, how to manipulate people, how to win at any cost. I moved toward them, but Marcus caught my arm. Wait, he murmured. You want to know the truth? Lauren's voice cracked. I didn't steal that money for Charles's gambling debts. There were no gambling debts. I took it because I could, because that's what you taught me. Take what you want and damn everyone else. Mum swayed, and Dad finally stepped forward to steady her. Helen, he said, it's time. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I can't... Tell them, Dad insisted. Tell them why you pushed Lauren so hard. Why you couldn't bear to see Katie succeed. Mom, my voice sounded small, even to myself. She turned to me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. You remind me so much of my sister, your Aunt Rebecca. I don't have an Aunt Rebecca. Not anymore. Mum's shoulders sagged. She was like you, strong, independent, unwilling to play by the rules. Our mother destroyed her, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. When she died, Mum's voice broke. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to my daughters. I thought if I made Lauren strong enough, ruthless enough, you'd protect her, I finished, by teaching her to destroy others first. I thought I was saving her. Mum looked at Lauren, who had crumpled to the floor. Instead, I turned her into the very thing I feared. The room was utterly silent now, watching our family implode in real time. I felt disconnected, like I was watching a play where I knew all the lines but couldn't change the ending. What happened to Aunt Rebecca? I asked. She killed herself, Dad said quietly. The day after your mother's wedding, the note she left, it broke something in your mother. Lauren laughed from her spot on the floor, a horrible broken sound. So that's it? Your sister's death turned you into this, made you twist me into something even worse. Lauren. Mom reached for her, but Lauren scrambled away. Don't touch me. I'm exactly what you made me. And now... She looked around the room, at the evidence still projected on the wall, at her colleagues' faces. Now I've lost everything. No, I said, surprising myself. You haven't lost everything. You've just lost the lie. I walked to the projector and switched it off. The sudden darkness felt appropriate. The police are outside, I said quietly. They've been waiting. It's your choice, Lauren. Walk out with dignity or make them come in. She stared at me for a long moment, then stood shakily. You finally won, sister. No. I met her gaze steadily. We all lost. The only difference is, I'm done playing. As the police led Lauren away, Mum reached for my hand. I let her take it, felt her trembling. Katie, she whispered, I'm so... I know. I squeezed her hand once, then let go. But knowing why doesn't change what happened. Some things can't be fixed. I turned away, found Marcus in the crowd. His eyes held nothing but love and understanding. Some things can't be fixed, but maybe they can be rebuilt into something new entirely. The courthouse steps felt different under my feet this time. No longer threatening, just concrete and stone. Lauren's sentencing had been brief, clinical, 5 years, with possibility of parole. She didn't look at me once. I lingered outside, watching autumn leaves scatter across the plaza until Aunt Clara found me. Your mother's asking for you, she said, settling beside me on the steps. She's been sitting in Rebecca's old room for days, going through photographs. I can't fix her, Clara. The words tasted like freedom. I can't fix any of them. No. She squeezed my hand. But maybe that was never your job. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus about final wedding preparations. We'd chosen a small ceremony, just close friends and chosen family. My parents' invitation remained unanswered. I found this in Rebecca's things, Clara said, pulling out a worn envelope. She wrote it the day before. Well, it was meant for your mother, but Helen never read it. The paper felt fragile in my hands. Rebecca's handwriting was eerily similar to mine. I'm not running away, I read aloud. I'm choosing myself. There's a difference. My throat tightened. She wasn't weak. No. Clara's voice was gentle. Neither are you. A familiar car pulled up. Dad, looking older than his years. He approached slowly, like I might bolt. The house is sold, he said without preamble. Your mother's agreed to get help. Real help this time. And Lauren has requested no visitors. He sat heavily on my other side. I kept telling myself I was protecting you both by staying neutral. I never realized silence could be its own kind of violence. The autumn wind picked up, carrying Rebecca's letter from my hands. I watched it dance away, her final words scattering like seeds. I'm getting married next week, I said. Dad nodded. I know. I don't need you to walk me down the aisle. I don't need any of the traditional things anymore. What do you need? The question hung between us, heavy with 30 years of unspoken words. I thought about Lauren in her cell, Mom in Rebecca's room, all of us trapped in cycles of protection and destruction. I need you to understand something, I said finally. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not seeking revenge or justice or even closure. I'm just choosing myself. Like Rebecca, Clara murmured. But unlike Rebecca, I continued, I'm still here. I'm still standing. And that has to be enough. Dad's hand found mine, rough and familiar. It's more than enough. My phone buzzed again. Marcus sending a photo of our new house keys, a future waiting to be unlocked. Will you come? I asked Dad. To the wedding? Do you want me to? I paused, realizing the truth of it. I want to stop expecting you to be different people. I want to accept who you are, who I am, and let that be okay. Clara stood, brushing off her skirt. That sounds like healing to me, not forgiveness, Dad asked quietly. Maybe something better. I stood too, feeling lighter than I had in years. Maybe acceptance. As if on cue, Marcus's car appeared around the corner. He'd known exactly where to find me, exactly when I'd need him. That's what real love looks like, I realized. Not manipulation disguised as protection, not control masked as care, but simple, steady presence. Helen asked me to give you this, Dad said, holding out a small box. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet I recognized from old photos. Rebecca's? He nodded. Your mother said. She said you should have it, not because you remind her of Rebecca anymore, but because you chose a different ending. I closed the box without putting the bracelet on. Some inheritances don't need to be worn to be honored. Marcus pulled up, and through the windshield, I could see him waiting patiently, giving me space to finish this moment on my own terms. Behind me stood the courthouse where my sister's fate had been decided. Before me stretched a future I was finally ready to claim. I'll see you at the wedding, I told Dad. It wasn't quite a question, wasn't quite a promise. Like everything else in our new reality, it was simply a choice waiting to be made. I walked toward Marcus, toward tomorrow, leaving the autumn wind to whisper its own endings behind me.